There's a creature on this planet with 9 brains, 3 hearts, and blue blood, and it's been quietly outsmarting us for years. Not in theory, not in a lab experiment designed to make scientists feel clever. In the real world, in aquariums, at night, when nobody is watching. Or so they thought. The octopus doesn't fit our model of intelligence. It has no bones, no permanent home, and no social structure to speak of. By every traditional measure, it should be primitive, and yet it memorizes guard schedules. It navigates foreign tanks in complete darkness. It solves problems we haven't even thought to test yet. And then it goes home before sunrise, leaving almost no trace. This is not instinct. This is something else entirely. Have you ever watched an octopus and had the strange feeling it was watching you back and taking notes? For most of human history, we've drawn a very clean line between creatures that think and creatures that simply react. Intelligence, we decided, required a centralized brain, a social life, a long childhood. It required, in some unspoken way, resembling us. The octopus fails every single one of those criteria, and that made it easy to dismiss. In most popular science, cephalopods were filed under fascinating but simple, colorful, alien, impressive at camouflage, but not smart, not in the way that mattered. The assumption was that their distributed nervous system, with 2/3 of their neurons spread across their 8 arms, rather than concentrated in a brain, made them reactive rather than deliberate. Instinct, machines, with good aesthetics. That assumption is now falling apart. Hold that thought, because what happened in New Zealand in 2016 didn't just challenge that assumption, it demolished it. The National Aquarium of New Zealand, in Napier, had a problem they couldn't explain. Staff kept finding fish missing from a tank that housed several species for observation. No signs of forced entry, no equipment failures. The tank was secured. The fish were simply gone. They installed a night camera. What it captured was Inky, a male common octopus roughly the size of a rugby ball, waiting, watching, and then, at some point in the night, squeezing his entire body through a small gap at the top of his tank. A body that seemed far too large for that gap. Because octopuses have no rigid skeleton, their only structural constraint is the size of their beak, the single hard part of their body. If the beak fits, the body follows. Inky crossed the aquarium floor. He located a drainpipe, roughly 50 meters away, that led directly to the ocean, and he left. Not to another tank, not to hide. He escaped into Hawke's Bay and was never seen again. Now, think about what this required. Inky had to understand that his tank had a boundary he could cross. He had to know the aquarium's layout well enough to navigate it in the dark. He had to locate a specific pipe among the unfamiliar terrain of the aquarium floor and understand that it led out. This wasn't panic. This wasn't random movement. This was a plan. But Inky's case, as dramatic as it is, isn't even the most sophisticated behavior on record. Because other octopuses didn't just escape, they came back. Multiple aquarium workers across different facilities, in California, in Europe, in Japan, have reported the same thing. Fish disappearing from neighboring tanks overnight with no apparent cause. Some facilities began finding small, telltale signs, a suction mark here, a displaced rock there. And when they set up cameras or increased overnight staff, they discovered octopuses making nightly excursions from their own tanks, crossing to adjacent tanks to feed, and returning before morning. This is where I personally stop and just sit with the weight of what that means. An octopus, in order to make a recurring nocturnal raid and return safely, needs to do several things simultaneously. It needs a mental map of the environment, not just its own tank, but the space between tanks, the obstacles, the routes. It needs to track time well enough to return before staff arrive. And it needs to remember that the consequences of being caught, stress, repositioning, loss of access, are worth avoiding. That is not a reflex. That is planning across time. Researchers at the University of Otago, who study cephalopod cognition, have documented what they describe as episodic-like memory in octopuses. The ability to recall not just what happened, but where and when. This is the cognitive scaffold that allows for anticipation, for strategy, for the kind of behavior Inky and his nocturnal counterparts demonstrated. And here's what makes this even more extraordinary. Octopuses do this entirely alone. There is no social learning, no parent teaching a juvenile how to navigate. Every individual octopus builds its cognitive map of the world from scratch, through direct experience, in a lifespan that rarely exceeds 3 years. 3 years. To develop spatial memory sophisticated enough to navigate a foreign environment, identify resources, assess risk, and act on a time schedule. We have animals with large social brains, wolves, elephants, primates that spend years in learning environments and still don't demonstrate this level of individual problem-solving flexibility. The octopus does it alone, quietly, in the dark, and then goes home. The neuroscience here is genuinely strange. Those 9 brains I mentioned, more accurately 1 central brain and 8 semi-autonomous ganglia, 1 in each arm, operate in a way that has no real parallel in vertebrate biology. Each arm can make local decisions without consulting the central brain. When an octopus is navigating, it's not running a single executive program. It's running something closer to a committee that apparently agrees consistently to be excellent at problem solving. What researchers find particularly remarkable is the role of play in octopus development. Jennifer Mather at the University of Lethbridge documented what she called play behavior in octopuses, repeatedly manipulating objects with no apparent survival function. This is significant because in vertebrates, play is almost universally associated with species that have complex cognitive development. We play to learn, and apparently, so do they. I think we've been asking the wrong question. We keep asking, how smart is an octopus? As if intelligence is a single axis on which all creatures can be ranked. But what the octopus represents is a completely different architecture of intelligence, one that evolved independently from vertebrate cognition, separated by perhaps 500 million years of evolutionary history. The last common ancestor we shared was likely a simple flatworm. What we're really looking at when we look at an octopus is a second invention of complexity. Nature discovered intelligence twice, and it looks almost nothing like us. If that fascinates you even a little, the subscribe button is right there. Every week, we go deeper into minds like this. Inky, to our knowledge, made it. Hawke's Bay is a productive marine environment, and a healthy adult octopus is a formidable predator. The aquarium staff, rather than expressing frustration, described admiration. The director at the time said simply, "He managed to figure out how to escape." There's something in that phrasing I keep returning to. He managed to figure it out. Not, he found a hole. Not, he followed an instinct. He figured it out. Even the humans who watched it happen couldn't default to dismissal. The other aquariums that discovered their octopuses were making nightly feeding raids faced a practical problem. What do? Some reinforced their tanks. Some installed heavier lids. One facility in California reportedly had to separate their octopus entirely after it systematically depleted a neighboring tank of expensive research specimens, apparently on a schedule that corresponded to staff shift changes, as if it had identified the window of lowest surveillance. That detail, if accurate, implies something that should make us deeply uncomfortable in the best possible way. An octopus learning human behavioral patterns. Not reacting to them, learning them, tracking them, exploiting them. The standard rebuttal from skeptics is conditioning. The octopus learned through repeated trial and error that certain periods were safe, and its behavior was reinforced. Fair. That's a reasonable mechanistic explanation. But conditioning that sophisticated, applied to a schedule that shifts with human behavior, still requires a cognitive architecture that the old model of invertebrate intelligence simply cannot account for. Call it conditioning if you need to. The output still looks like strategy. Nature is far more brilliant than we imagine. See you on our next exploration.